Economists say that President Trump's big, beautiful tax bill comes with a $3 trillion price tag over the next few months, but the White House says the opposite is true. So here to break down the disconnect, we've got Washington correspondent for Yahoo Finance, Ben Werschkul. Ben, what have you been able to dig into with the details here?
Yeah, Brad. So this is a divide that we've seen between the White House and independent economists. Treasury Secretary Bessent was on Capitol Hill yesterday, and you saw this over and over again, and I think you're going to see a lot of it in the hearing today. And this is this divide you mentioned. It's $11 trillion difference between $3 trillion in red ink and $8 trillion in black ink that the White House is projecting. And the White House explains this difference based on kind of a three-step process. The first step here is to write off the tax cut portion of the big, beautiful bill. This gets you about $3.7 trillion and kind of is in line with a long-standing Republican argument, which I'd note hasn't been borne out in previous tax cuts, that basically tax cuts are free. They pay for themselves. If you cut it, the revenue goes up and it equals out. And so you should count that as zero. So that's step one. Step two is a really aggressive projection of 3% economic growth. And the issue here is this is 3% economic growth over the entire next decade. So it's not just in the first couple of years while this tax bill would presumably be felt, but it would be over a 10-year span of sustained kind of economic boom that most economists see as hard to project, especially considering a lot of this bill will wear off after a few years as it's written now. And then the third step here, so that second step gets you $4 trillion. So the third step here is to add in tariffs, and that gives you another $2.8 trillion, which gets you to this $11 trillion figure. This is citing another CBO report about tariffs bringing in about $2.8 trillion in revenue over the next decade. There's a lot of assumptions in here as well that the tariffs stay the same. The White House is negotiating tariffs just this week, so the tariffs are going to go up and down. It also assumes they keep in line past Trump's term in office. The bottom line here is that this is a divide that both sides are dug into. Bessent has defended it vigorously. The overall projections, and the White House is staying away from that. So this is a divide between the two that's not going away. In reporting the story, I talked to economists who described the White House position as ridiculous, but they're very much standing by it. So for right now, both sides are talking past each other, and whether that impacts the actual passage of the bill remains to be seen.
Ben, while we have you here, we are inside of a month until Liberation Day 2.0, and as of right now, we're still waiting to see if there's going to be a major deal that gets signed prior to then and the expiry of what was trade truces, and additionally just making sure that there was prolonged period of good faith negotiations. What are the anticipations?
Yeah, so what was striking me about yesterday, Bessent's testimony yesterday was part of this, but it spanned across the administration, was how this Liberation Day 2.0 is coming up in about 3 weeks, and we saw multiple scenarios of what this could look like. Here's three of them. The first was from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who basically described Liberation Day 2.0 as a celebration of deal after deal that they promise are going to be announced in the coming weeks. We've heard a lot of that before. There's a few countries that seem to be at the front of the line, but we're a long ways from a kind of initial promises of 90 deals in 90 days. The second was from Bessent himself, who talked about how it's highly likely that Trump pushes back his deadlines on some of these, that there's negotiations going on. In their view, if a country's operating in good faith, Liberation Day may be less of an event if they add another 90 days to their clock or things like that. And then the third is from Trump himself, who last night talked about sending letters to the countries, basically just, we're going to dictate this tariff. This is what the deal is, take it or leave it, is his view. It's worth noting that Trump has also last night kind of alluded to these other scenarios from Lutnick and Bessent. So, and it kind of gets in line with what the overall expectation here is, that what Liberation Day 2.0 is kind of a mix of all three. An analyst, Henrietta Trey's at Veda Partners, had a good metaphor in a note to me this morning. She described it as a potluck. Basically, it's a little bit of something for everyone, but much like a potluck, each of the dishes, some dishes are much tastier than others. So the question is kind of which bucket the different countries will get into. So that's why I think you're going to see a lot of scrambling in the next 3 weeks as we near this next deadline in the trade war.
Just as long as you've tried the thing that you've cooked and brought to the potluck before you bring it to the actual potluck.
Yeah, a little bit on your plate, yeah.
Exactly. Ben, thanks so much.